And once you realize you're allowed to play that game, something subtle but powerful shifts inside you. You stop waiting for the world to give you clear instructions, and you start writing your own. You walk into situations not just to survive them, but to study them. Every room becomes a classroom. Every person becomes a case study. Every challenge becomes a custom-built lesson designed specifically for the next version of you. Think about how most people move through their day. They wake up, follow routines, react to problems, scroll through feeds, and fall asleep. Days blur into weeks. Weeks blur into years. And then one day they look back and wonder where all the time went. The learning method schools never teach turns time into a tool instead of a blur. It forces you to slow down just enough to extract meaning from motion, to turn moments into milestones. Let's talk about failure for a second, because this is where the system either breaks you or builds you. Most people treat failure like a verdict, a label, a sign that they are not good enough, not smart enough, not cut out for something. But the real learners treat failure like a message, a signal, a piece of information that tells them exactly where their current model of the world is wrong. And if you listen closely, failure is one of the most honest teachers you will ever have. Imagine playing a video game with no feedback, no score, no health bar, no sound when you make a mistake. You would never know if you were getting better or worse. That's how many people live their lives. They move without metrics, act without reflection, hope without strategy. The learning method adds a scoreboard to your real life. It forces you to define what better actually means for you. Ask yourself this. How do you know if you're improving at something? Not how it feels, not what others say. How do you measure it? Because what gets measured gets refined, and what gets refined gets powerful. The moment you create simple ways to track your progress, you stop guessing and start steering. Now let's go deeper. Your brain is not designed to store unlimited information. It's designed to recognize patterns. That's why stories are more memorable than facts. That's why you remember moments, not manuals. The learning method schools never teach uses this natural design instead of fighting it. You don't memorize. You connect. You build mental webs instead of mental warehouses. Think about a time you truly understood something. Not just repeated it, but got it. That moment when pieces clicked together and suddenly the world looked slightly different. That wasn't because you added more information. It was because you reorganized what you already had. You saw a pattern you hadn't seen before. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. This is why teaching is one of the most powerful learning tools. The moment you try to explain something to someone else, all the gaps in your understanding show up instantly. You realized what you actually know and what you just thought you knew. That's why the real learners don't hide their journey. They document it. They share it. They turn their growth into a signal for others and a mirror for themselves. Now consider this. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards results. But results are just the visible tip of an invisible system, a system made of habits, decisions, and mental models that run quietly in the background of your life. The learning method is about upgrading that system, not just chasing the outcomes it produces. Let me give you an example. Two people can read the same article about productivity. One feels inspired for a day and goes back to old habits. The other asks, what is one small behavior I can change today that will still matter a year from now? One consumes motivation. The other designs a mechanism, and mechanisms beat motivation every time. Here's something most people don't realize. Your environment is one of your greatest teachers. The people you spend time with, the content you consume, the spaces you work in. They are constantly shaping what you think is normal, what you think is possible, and what you think is worth pursuing. The learning method schools never teach includes learning how to curate your environment, not just survive in it. Ask yourself this. If someone studied your daily life like a scientist, what would they predict about your future? Based on your habits, your inputs, your conversations, your challenges, would they see growth or repetition? Because the future is rarely a surprise. It's usually just a pattern that hasn't finished yet. Now, let's talk about speed. Not the speed of rushing, but the speed of feedback. The faster you can test an idea and see what happens, the faster you learn. That's why startups can outmaneuver giant companies. That's why creators can build audiences faster than traditional media. They don't wait for perfect. They launch, listen, and adjust over and over. Perfection is a delay disguised as a virtue. The learning method exposes it for what it is, a way to avoid the discomfort of being seen while you're still figuring things out. Real learners trade polish for progress. They'd rather be clumsy and growing than smooth and stuck. Think about language learning. You can study grammar for years and still freeze when it's time to speak. Or you can start speaking badly on day one and get better in public. One path protects your ego. The other builds your skill. And the world doesn't reward protected egos. It rewards practiced abilities. Now, here's a powerful shift. Instead of asking, what should I learn next? Start asking, what problem do I want to solve? Problems pull knowledge toward you. They give learning a direction, a purpose. You stop collecting random facts and start building a toolkit designed for a specific mission. This is how the most effective people operate. They don't learn in isolation. They learn in context. They attach knowledge to real-world stakes, deadlines, consequences, opportunities. And suddenly, their brain cares more. Focus sharpens. Memory deepens. Because now, learning is no longer abstract. It's survival. It's progress. It's identity. Let's talk about identity for a moment. The story you tell yourself about who you are quietly controls what you try, what you avoid, and what you persist through. If you see yourself as not good at learning or not a fast learner, you will unconsciously act in ways that prove that story true. The learning method is also an identity shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who consumes knowledge and start seeing yourself as someone who builds understanding. There's a huge difference. Consumers wait for value to be delivered. Builders create value from what they touch. Give them a book, they turn it into a plan. Give them a mistake, they turn it into a model. Give them a setback, they turn it into a strategy. And here's where it all comes together. The world is not divided into people who are talented and people who are not. It's divided into people who run learning loops and people who run routines. One group evolves. The other repeats. And overchimi. The difference becomes so large it looks like destiny. So the next time you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or behind, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? Because that question alone can turn pressure into progress, confusion into clarity, and motion into meaning. And when you start living this way, something unexpected happens. You become harder to manipulate, harder to discourage, harder to, because you no longer depend on external validation to grow. Your growth is self-generated, self-correcting, self-sustaining. This is the learning method schools never teach. Not because it's secret, but because it can't be standardized, tested, or graded. It's personal, It's messy. It's alive. And once you step into it, you don't just learn faster. You become someone who is always becoming